Right, there was once a man called Kimani Maruge who touched the lives of many Kenyans simply because he took advantage of the free primary education to go back to school at 84 years of age. And his reason was really simple. He wanted to learn how to read the Bible. And years later, a movie to tell his story was made. And this morning, we're joined by Mr. Richard Harding, the producer of The First Grader, as well as Mr. Oliver Litondo, a renowned actor in Kenya who got the privilege to play the now late Maruge. Very good morning to you, gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining me this morning. We have a lot to talk about it, but the first question to both of you, and anyone can go first, how was it filming The First Grader?
I'll let you go first.
Well, maybe I should go first. It was interesting. I would say interesting in the sense that for me it was the first local, real big film that was produced here. And it involved a lot of local people.
Yes. And
it was a Kenyan story.
Yes.
For that reason, the interest that it brought out is embraced within that context.
Yes.
Yes.
What about Richard? How is it as being the producer of this film? What was the experience like?
Well, it was a really amazing experience, and one of the reasons why is because the Kenyan people and the crew that we worked with, they were extremely efficient in the way producing the film with us, because we have a certain standard that we usually use in the United States, and coming here we felt that that standard was not lost, and so we were extremely impressed with the Kenyan people, the crew that we worked with, and to the point where we even finished, a day ahead of schedule to get the film done. So it was a really amazing experience for that reason.
Alright, there's some sort of silent uproar, and this is to you, with the use of a British actress as Maruge's teacher. I'd want to know why you did that, and we've seen it also happens a lot when it comes to African themed movies, getting foreign actors to play the main role, with the current one being Will Smith's Concussion. There's also been a bit of uproar and many people saying, his Nigerian accent was not at 100%. I'd like to know why that happens.
Well, I mean, it happens for several different reasons, and I'll tell you about our case. In our case, for us, we try to look for the best actors and actresses for each film. Oliver, for us, was the first choice when we met him and wanted to make the film. We couldn't have seen this film being made with anybody else other than Oliver.
Yes.
As far as the female lead is concerned, there were great actresses in Kenya that could play the role, but there was just something about Naomi that we loved and thought that she could also play the role very well. And Naomi's somebody that we had always wanted to work with, so we chose Naomi for that reason. But let's not just look at that. Naomi was the only European actress in this African film. Everybody else was predominantly Kenyan in the film itself. For Will Smith's Concussion, well, there's certain things that happen in Hollywood. Because money comes from Hollywood, you have to use stars that will get people into theaters to go see those stars. A lot of actors that are not either European or American are not well known, and sometimes people just don't go to the theaters unless there's big stars in there, and when the money comes from the studios, they want to get their money back. And when you put a Will Smith in a film, people run to go see those films, and that's usually sometimes an economic situation.
Oliver, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
And if you're going to make money from a film, you have to have the ingredients that will pull the consumer.
Yes.
I think that applies also to the local film production. The local film production has grown and is growing and will grow. But I would like that ingredient to now be inculcated into the local productions.
Okay.
i.e. bringing in some names that are international stars that can pull, as Richard says, the consumer, the viewer, the person who goes to
But then the argument then becomes, when will, for example, Kirigo, who wants to become an actress, ever shine? if these particular roles that are meant to be played by Kirigo, by Oliver, by Kamau, are taken up by someone else?
Yes. Now that is a challenge to, I think, the producers from Hollywood.
You can look at it both ways. Lupita Nyong'o, she's not a black American slave. She's a Kenyan.
She's a Kenyan.
But she played a black American slave. You know, Idris Elba is African. You know, Chiwetel Ejiofor, he's also African, and these people play American roles. So it goes both ways.
Okay.
You know, and we don't complain when Africans play American roles. I don't think we should do the same either way.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a story for another day, and we could be here for days if we were to discuss that. Yeah. But I'd want to hear your thoughts, Oliver. You've been in this industry, the film industry, for very many years, and I just want to know what you think about the industry now. Have we grown? Have we stagnated? What's going on?
I think we've grown.
We've grown.
And we were growing, but we seem to be stagnating.
Okay.
The stagnation comes this way. There are film producers in this country who can do a good job,
yes,
and who have done marvelous jobs.
Yes.
But the encouragement to go further is not forthcoming. What is this encouragement I mean? The government of Kenya has to learn from the government of South Africa, in the sense that South Africa is encouraging film production both from outside and locally by giving them certain subsidies that encourage them to make films, to attract films to come into the country from out, and by so doing to encourage the locals as well to work with these international filmmakers, to learn from them and to start molding the industry within the country itself. We are not doing it here.
Okay.
There was a move to make these concessions,
yes,
taxations,
yes,
but I don't know how far it has gone.
And this is about 2-3 years ago.
Yes, it is stagnated. That's where I'm saying it started, it went, it has stagnated. I don't know whether it's at the treasury level, because I remember the president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, making a pronouncement that the government was going to give these concessions. And we were happy about it. The ministry concerned was also involved in that negotiations. I don't know where we are now. Movies that are supposed to be made here continue going to South Africa. Even Kenyan movies that are supposed to be shot on location here. I'll give you Dan Eldon's movie was made in South Africa not too long ago. Something that should not have happened, and so on and so forth. Why are we not brave enough to say, let us forego the little monies that we want to make, by taxing these people so highly?
Yes.
Reduce that taxation so that we can bring the volume of filmmakers and make more money from that volume, instead of bringing in trickle, 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 and making trickle, trickle, trickle.
And Richard, do you share the same sentiments?
Well, of course. As a film producer, we go where the money's at. Movies are hard to get made. They're hard to get financed. And at the level where we make movies, they're millions of dollars. We're making $10, $20, $30 million films. And we go to places where the incentives will bring that number down, because you can take a film to South Africa with all the incentives there and get the movie made for less. Mm-hmm. The problem with doing it here is that sometimes you run at that loss. When we did The First Grader, what happened is that we lost money because we were going to get about $1 million from South Africa. We went to South Africa and looked at it, but then as producers we sat down and said it made no sense to replicate Kenya in South Africa when Kenya already exists. So we decided to forego that money, and we're very fortunate to work with a company here, a local company here called Blue Sky, that worked the numbers, and Mario and Jim really worked the numbers and made it work for us to balance it out.
Oliver, I've heard what you've said, and I've heard you talk about the government and what the government needs to do, but there's also the feeling that those in the industry, actors, producers, directors, are all over the place, in the sense that ideally they should come together and fight for this, because really it's for their own benefit, you know, but there are splinter groups left, right and center, making it more difficult for your case to be heard. Do you see the importance of people in this industry, the actors, directors, producers, coming together, forming one body, that is going to push the government? Because we can sit here and sing and say the government needs to do A, B, C, D, F, G, but if you who is in the industry is not in sync, then there's a problem.
Must the government be pushed?
Sometimes, I mean, you know,
if the government, this is an industry. Filmmaking is a creative industry.
True.
And it's large, it's huge. It can bring in money.
Yes.
The government should see this. The government doesn't need to be pushed. But I see where you're coming from.
Yes.
I agree with you. There are splinters of producers, splinters of actors, splinters of this and the other in the film industry. They have been there for years, since I was, I don't know how old. And we fight each other. You just said, how are we going to get our own actors to be recognized? You see, when Richard comes here with a film and he wants somebody, we should speak as an actors group with one voice and say we want each actor taking the main character to be paid so much. But then there are those who go behind afterwards and say, Oliver wanted 200,000 shillings, but I'll go for 20,000. So why not me? And you're saving money. But a clever producer will not go for that, will not fall for that, because he wants the quality, he wants the actual thing in that actor. But your point is well taken, that we have to form associations of actors, actors guild, for instance, producers organizations, for instance, so that we can, which is what is happening in Hollywood. I'm a member of the of SAG, the Screen Actors, you know, guild in Hollywood, and when actors are taken, that organization makes sure that they go by the letter of the organization for that actor to get what he or she is worth. This is what we need here. We need organizations that can push our issues not only through to the government, but also through the producers who come in from outside, through to even the private sectors that require commercials to be made, for instance. So that our voices can now be heard. But also, to do this, we need the government to give us the space, because there have been attempts to organize and register such organizations. When it goes to the registration board there, or table there, they are not registered for one reason or another. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll leave that challenge to you then, you know, but maybe 1 year from now we'll see whether things have changed.
Less than 1 year from now.
I'm just giving you that challenge, you know, and I'll be looking out for you. The tourism industry, Oliver, this is for you, is the biggest foreign exchange earner for Kenya. Talk to a film director who feels the tourism sector was actually built by movies. Do you agree with this?
I do agree. I do agree. The tourism industry in Kenya is huge, as we all know. It goes without saying. But to make it even bigger, we need just not publicity in terms of commercials on the TV and international media, but also through films. Richard has a film on board which he would like to shoot here in Kenya, which has the whole breadth and length of this country, the geographical breadth. the geographical length, the cultural, and whatever you want to call them. He may go to South Africa. He's threatening to take it to South Africa. To sell South Africa as a tourist attraction, as a tourist destination, instead of selling Kenya through that film as a tourist attraction. So yes, film is a major and huge component of tourism. And I think the time has come when the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Film or whatever, culture, came together to see how they can work in sync to make, to sort of help each other, to promote each other. Film promoting it, the tourism industry. The tourism industry also promoting the film industry and so on. A symbiotic kind of working relationship. Yes, I agree.
Richard, you're here threatening to go to South Africa, as Oliver has said. And what I'd want to understand from you as a producer, we're talking about incentives. For those who might not understand, what exactly do you mean South Africa is giving you better incentives? Well,
incentives in the sense that, I'll give you an example. If a film financially costs $10 million to make, the South African government will give you a certain percentage of your money back that you spend in their country. So for example, they'll give you 30 or 40% back. So they will contribute $4 million to your $10 million movie, which means you only have to spend $6 technically. Plus you have other investors, like local investors, private citizens, that will also put money in your film. They'll probably put, you know, $500 to $1 million, or sometimes $2 million as an investment into the film. So those are the incentives that we're looking at.
There's zero getting your money back somewhere, one way or another.
Exactly, but what we do is that, what would happen is that once the government has agreed to that incentive, what you do is you find there are groups and things set aside to where they will front you the money. So they'll front you that 40% to shoot the film. So once the film is done, the government just gives it to them instead of you.
Let's talk about distribution in Africa. Distribution of film is one of revenue collection points for films.
Correct.
Right? It's what makes you people money. But in Africa, it's really a big challenge. Richard, what advice would you give those in the film industry and the government, you know, as well, on the way forward in regards to distributorship?
Well, I was a bit surprised. Not many people have seen The First Grader in Kenya. When I ask about it, a lot of people don't know. But when I mention Kimani, everybody knows who he is. I don't think you guys have that many movie theaters out here.
We have a few. We have a few.
We have a number.
We have a number. It's not like America. You can't compare us to America. That's a different story altogether. But for Nairobi, for Kenya, we're doing very well. I want to say about 15 around the country. Majority being in Nairobi.
There used to be more. I don't know what happened.
Oliver, there used to be more, but we have theaters. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's a good number. But as far as the distribution is concerned, I think there needs to be a lot more impact, you know, on distribution to get more films out there. Because technically, if you are making a film, the only way there can be a return on the film is through box office receipts, through through viewership primarily. And if people are not having that channel to view a film, there's no way there could be that type of return. So distribution is extremely important in any film that's being made.
Oliver, he's brought up something very important, the issue of viewership. Well, we're not airing our dirty laundry here in front of Richard, but we know as a people, we're not very big on going to the theaters to watch movies. Not many of us anyway, a very small percentage of us do that. What do you think needs to happen to change that cycle? Do we then go back to what we used to call the open-air cinemas? Will that be beneficial to you as, you know, a director, a film producer, an actor? Or what exactly needs to happen so that the distribution of your films makes sense?
I think that we should reverse the process.
Okay, reverse.
The big cinema halls that are in Nairobi should be taken to Kisumu, to Murang'a, and to other.
Should be devolved?
It should be. No. That is where the people have the hunger, have the thirst of watching films. Really? Yes, because how many of those people have got televisions? How many of those people have got your modern tablets and so on and so forth? And if you took these big halls to those places, you will fill them with those hungry people in the rural area. Now, coming to your point of open air, open air. I started being interested in movies through open air viewership in the village, where the mobile vans used to come, and we would sit out there in the cold watching Charlie Chaplin, for instance, and so on and so forth and so on. These people want to watch. You may say they may not have the power to pay. That's and so on. To go to. Yeah, I knew you were going there. I'd rather go there before you. Yes. So, but if you have the volume, and you start to build the power, the money power in those areas, which is what the government is trying to do. Okay. That's why the devolution of the government has come about. Yes. To make those people powerful in earning money, in spending money. So you will have this power to start to interest these people to watch films. But here in Nairobi, I think the cinemas that are there have a lethargic kind of I don't know what's happening. People have refused to go to movies. And yet movies, big cinema halls, are where you meet people, exchange views, share some popcorns, and talk, and enjoy, and so on and so forth. Instead of sitting in your own sitting room with your family there, you see each other every day. So that culture has to be reactivated. People going out to watch movies, and of course the thing of security comes in a little bit, but security notwithstanding, Kenyans have the propensity to want to go out. They go out to eat nyama chomas. Why can't they go out to watch a movie? Movies with their family, with their children, with their wives, and so on and so forth. I think that culture can be reactivated.
Richard, I don't know whether you've come across what we call Riverwood here, low-budget films, and I'd want to hear what you have to say in regards to low-budget films, because there's also the argument that, you know, if we focus too much on, for lack of a better term, high-end films, then we kill the local industry, the Riverwoods, the low-end budget films. What's your thought on that?
I think low-budget films are some of the best films being made today. I mean, we have that in the United States, and it's a huge industry, low-budget films. And quite frankly, I find low-budget films a lot of times to be much better than the higher-budget films. The quality is much greater. The difference between low-budget films and the bigger films, there's more heart put into low-budget films. Because people who make low-budget films work literally for the passion. For the passion to get the film made. So that's why the stories are sometimes better, you know, the acting is usually better, and it's just a much better film all around, whilst the higher budget films, it's usually made mainly for the money, you know. So I am all for low budget films. I feel like that industry should continue to grow, and it should continue to be supported, and that's what's going to continue to bring the industry here up, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I'm glad that Richard mentioned the word quality. Yes. Low-budget films are good. They are authentic. They bring the authenticity of the story out. And if we can think in terms of what quality of low-budget films are we talking about, then we'll have our story on board. I have a film company called Lakewood Films,
yes, that we're going to talk about,
which is going to make low-budget films here in Kenya.
Okay.
And by making these low-budget films, we will start to lift the quality of the production of the films in terms of storylines, in terms of acting, in terms of producing, in terms of location, and so on and so forth. Look at what we are doing. We are consuming everything from Nollywood. Whether quality-wise we can swallow them, but we do swallow them because we need them, because we have nothing else that comes from Kenya or from Africa of the kind of stories that Nollywood is putting out. Yes.
I think the reason why Nollywood has been very successful is because there's a very strong cultural presence in the country, and that's why it sells. And I want to ask you now, come to Kenya, where majority of us are modernized, quote unquote. Majority of us are exposed to what Richard and his fellow workmates are doing back in America. So then it becomes a challenge when Oliver gives me a movie and I'm like, he's trying to copy what Richard did. How do we change that? You know, and do we have room, or do we have an audience for our local stories?
We have a big audience, not only locally in Kenya or in Africa, but internationally. Why? If you make a story, a movie with a storyline based on a Kenyan cultural aspect, but touches on the international cultural aspects that will reverberate with Nigeria, will reverberate with somebody in Europe, will reverberate with somebody in South America and India and so on and so forth. These films will be consumed, these films will be shown. Let our stories start to evolve the idea that we have become an international house with stories that now Hollywood is making Star Wars and whatnot and whatnot. Africa has got the earth, the stories that tell the earth stories, stories that reverberate from Africa going out to other countries.
Yes.
We have the cultural aspects that don't exist in other countries today. And if we can put that against the backdrop of the international cultural aspect, we'll have it made. We don't have to make it making it for people in Kenya.
Yes.
Let it be a Kenyan story that will burst out into the world.
Richard, do you agree with him?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, I believe that Kenya has a lot of really great and amazing stories, you know, and I feel that these stories need to be told. I don't feel that, you know, people from the outside should be the only ones coming here, you know, not just Kenya, but all of Africa, and making great stories from Africa. But I feel like Africans themselves should be able to capitalize on the great stories. And the great thing about it is that there's a universal audience for African stories. Americans, we love African stories. People in Europe love African stories. So I feel like these African stories continue to grow. I mean, look at Tsotsi, for example, the first African film to ever win an Oscar. You know, so there's a lot of really great, amazing stories.
Okay. So they just need to be worked on and then put them out.
But they need to also be supported by, you know, local governments.
Yes.
You know, there needs to be some sort of industry set for people. I mean, because there's a lot of really great artists out here, directors, producers, actors, that need the support. And I don't feel like the support is strong enough.
Okay.
And that support, once it's built, I feel like great stories will come out of Kenya.
Okay.
But I think let me add, we keep beating up on government. The private sector has got the money. Why can't they also come into their arena and support this industry? Why can't some of the people that are making money from us in this country hear our voice and say, let us meet these people and see how we could or may help them to meet their demands or meet their aspirations. I think the private sector has got a role to play.
I'll tell you why they won't come, and I think it's because what I said earlier, we have splinter groups, you know, and that's a challenge. I come back to the challenge that I gave you earlier on. You've told me in less than a year you will be organized, so let's wait and see. Okay, you both have individual projects going on, but before we get into that, are we going to see you work together again in a big film?
I'd love to work with Oliver again. I think Oliver is a phenomenal actor, and I'd love to work with him again. I'll be honored to work with him again.
Oh, nice.
And we're looking for films that we can work together on in the future.
Okay.
Yes, I've got 3 scripts ready. Richard is going to produce them. Richard has got a script ready, which he's going to do, and we are going to work together. Okay,
so there's something coming up.
Yes.
All right. Richard, let's start with you, because your project is something out of the norm. It's End Malaria Now.
Oh, yes.
Tell us more about that.
Well, End Malaria Now is an organization that I founded in 2009. You know, and it's an organization, and what we do is that we work to help end the spread of malaria in Africa, because you have when we first started, you had over 1 million children under the age of 5 die from malaria every single year. That's one child dying every 60 seconds, sorry, every 30 seconds, which is devastating. In the United States, if that would have happened, we'd have curbed that epidemic a long time ago.
Real quick,
Really quickly. Unfortunately, that's not happening in Africa. You know, so what we do as an organization is we provide mosquito bed nets that are treated to African families, where we come out once a year and provide thousands of nets.
Okay.
This year we decided to come to Kenya. And one of the reasons why I chose Kenya is because Kenya gave me the opportunity to make a remarkable film, you know, The First Grader. You know, and our film went out and won over 24 awards worldwide. So what better way to thank the people of Kenya than to provide bed nets, you know, in the coastal region. So we just got back from Mombasa. We were at Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, if I pronounce it correct, you know, and we distributed 10,000 bed nets in that region. You know, we went to schools, boarding homes, we went to orphanages, convalescent homes for the elderly, schools for the blind and the deaf, and various other different institutions. And the reason why we chose institutions is because about a year or 2 ago, when they had a blanket coverage of mosquito nets, the institutions were overlooked.
Okay.
They only focused on houses and residents.
Yes.
So that's why we went to these institutions.
And how has it been so far since you started?
Well, I just got back yesterday.
No, I mean the whole project, you know, in trying to curb the spread.
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, since we started in 2009, it's been cut in half. So when we started, it was 1 million children dying every year. Now it's 500,000 dying every year. It's still a huge number.
True.
So there's still a long way to go. We're not the only ones doing it. There's several other organizations that do it as well.
Yes.
But this time we decided to come here, and so we're working really hard. And, you know, we had great support from the malaria department here with Dr. Omar, and also we worked in conjunction out there with the Rotary and the Rotaract Club of Mombasa, you know, which helped us, and we volunteered their time, which I thought was really amazing for them to come out there in the dozens. And what we do, unlike other organizations, is we hang up every single net ourselves. You know, I mean, we went to certain...
So you just don't drop it at my house?
Absolutely not. No.
You do it physically.
No, there's an accountability factor here, because we get donors from the United States that provide us, and we have to account for every net that's distributed. I mean, I remember we went to a school in Kilifi, and it was about 875 beds. We took almost the whole day hanging up the nets. I mean, we worked with the students, we taught them, and we hung up the nets, and we made it very clear to them that we're not leaving until every single net is hung. You know, so that's what we did. So. All
right, Oliver, you have Lakewood Films. Briefly tell us what it's about and what we expect from you this year.
Well, Lakewood Films is a company that incorporated in the U.S. It is registered in Los Angeles, in Hollywood in Los Angeles. It's also registered here in Kenya. The reason for forming this company is the need for me and my wife to come back to Kenya. We'll be going back and forth, of course. We still have a home in the U.S.
Yes.
To make films here. with local stories, with local people, with local actors. We will, of course, bring in international names as well, for the same reason that Richard mentioned. We want to make money so we can continue making more films. We don't want to make one film and then go back to sleep. So this is the reason why we formed this. And in conjunction with forming Lakewood Films, we have also a company called Skip that will be promoting what Lakewood Films will be doing. We'll also be looking at promoting some of the local organizations that will be needing some publicity and investment and so on and so forth. So yes, the 3 scripts that I mentioned earlier are going to be produced, to be made through Lakewood Films. Okay. And we will be working with people like Richard. Richard has got his own film production company called Sixth Sense, and we may be going into co-productions as well. This is the only way that we can bring the film industry to the fore, by making films with people training on the job while earning as well as training, so that when they finish they can move on to Richard's production and some of the big areas that we will be going into. So this is basically, I have 2 stories. 2 are Kenyans. I have 3. 2 are Kenyans, 1 is African, and we hope we can get this started and push it and get our people involved in the production of these films. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming this morning. It has been a pleasure talking to you guys, and I wish you all the best as you know, embark on this joint project and your individual projects as well, and hopefully we'll be seeing something from you guys real soon. All right?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
You're watching the Power Breakfast Show. Doing good and far.